Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Jason here from the Coast to Coast Canna Chat. I'm sitting with Mr. Stu Zakim from the Bridge Strategic Communications.
Yeah.
He's going to be spending some time with us today discussing how he's helped startups in their course of becoming entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs. Stu has a plethora of experience in the industry and has spent a lot of time, not just in the cannabis industry, but across a various array of industries I hope we're discussing. So he has seen it all. He's going to spend a little bit of time today telling us about his company and what he's doing currently in the cannabis industry. So, Stu?
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
So we are a public relations firm that specializes in a lot of areas, but right now we're focused on cannabis because cannabis is the biggest area that needs our services, and for a variety of reasons, which we can go through, but the best one, the top line is, if you're looking to start a brand, whether your brand is whatever in the industry, you need to, you're restricted in the cannabis industry by what you can and can't do. And we're not talking about security firms or people like that. We're talking product-driven.
Sure.
Dispensaries, delivery services, the people who are really interacting with consumers of cannabis, whether they're recreational, adult use, or medical. Nevertheless, there is that world that exists out there.
Yeah.
So, and the best way to maybe help people understand what I'm talking about is, let's say you and I we have our own dispensary and we want to advertise Jason's dispensary. So we want to shoot a commercial, and what we want to say in the commercials is essentially, come to our place, we got the best weed in town. But you can't say that.
Right.
So what we do, we take that same initiative, and let's say I have a reporter, a TV crew, or a print reporter, or whatever, coming to your dispensary, our dispensary, and they happen to see a couple of our patients or clients there, and they say, so why do you shop here? And they say, because he's got the best weed in town. That can then be used in that story as a quote from a consumer, or, if you're doing a TV spot, certainly an interview with that person, which then, of course, you can push out via social.
Sure.
So you're getting your message out in the same way you may want to with paid media, but by getting earned media, which is what this is,
Huge.
You're not spending the money that is necessary, that you normally would be spending to buy that kind of time.
Of course.
And by making it news or of interest so that a news outlet wants to cover it, it's a third-party endorsement. So from marketing, it's like a win-win-win.
Yeah.
And we are really the solution, not me, my firm, but my role, what the function is a solution to the marketing problem for cannabis. So
that's great.
Yeah.
It's a service that is definitely sorely needed in the industry. There's so much to be navigated through in this industry that for anyone who's pivoting or coming in new, it's a daunting task. It's something where you need a lot of handholding, and not just from a PR firm.
No, you need it across the board because This is still virgin territory, certainly here in New Jersey.
Right. In
the West Coast, it's a more mature business.
Yeah.
So there is more normalcy in how people do business. But there's still those restrictions that exist. California, Nevada, Colorado, any of those states, you can't be buying airtime in this space. You can't. Packaging. Branding is all about the look and feel of the product and how you position it to people. Well, you can't do certain things in your packaging. You can't have a flower on the outside. You can't call it Canna or Mara, you can, but that's kind of lazy. But regulation-wise, you can't put certain things. You always have to put, like the cigarette warning on that it's, you're consuming a drug, even though it's a plant.
Right.
But those are that's how these bills get passed, and you take what you get, and hope that as things get more mature, that language will soften and it'll become more mainstream. But look at alcohol. When for years alcohol was banned, advertising on television, it was not allowed. Then they finally started letting in after 10 o'clock.
Recently?
No, this is like
the 80s.
Well, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Well, that's recent, I guess.
Yeah.
Now it's 24/7. You can put on in the morning shows, and there's beer.
Sure.
All the football shows that do the handicapping on Sunday mornings. You're seeing beer at 10:30 in the morning. So eventually, once cannabis does get legalized on a national level, and people realize the world doesn't end because that happened, and this does have to exist like any other industry,
Sure.
perhaps those regulations will soften. But I would say for the foreseeable future, 10 plus years at least, this is the way it's going to be.
Yeah, no doubt. I was going to say, where do you see this, and how quickly do you see this evolving in the industry? But I think you're right. I think it's going to take a considerable amount of time, and for that to happen, there's a number of stepping stones that have to occur from a legalization perspective. But the normalcy of it, I think we're getting there quicker than the legalization of the piece.
Well, yes and no, because
I think a majority of people are in favor, right?
We live in an insulated world. See, we are of that ilk. We are in favor, and the people we associate with tend to share our beliefs. Mm-hmm. It's not really the case, even in a state like this. I'm representing a client now who got a license in the last round to open a dispensary and a cultivation facility, which is the vertical business
That's great.
The town that they're going to be opening their dispensary is welcoming them with open arms. Mm-hmm. Like, march down Main Street, come on in. Where the cultivation facility, however, is being built or will be built, the town itself is fine. It's the surrounding communities that are objecting to its presence. And the kind of verbiage they use and charges they place against us is a throwback to Reefer Madness time. And it really shows, when you talk about what the real role of what I'm here to do is educate.
Sure.
As a communicator, I have a unique ability to know how to communicate with people and reach them. So whether I'm working for money or I'm just advising people, there are certain things I'm looking for the industry as a whole to support. We need to change the conversation. Mm-hmm. We need to change the way how people, like these ones in this town I'm not mentioning, are responding to propaganda that's been out there for a long time.
There's a lot. People are worried about it devaluing their properties. Yes. They're worried about, the situations where it's being positioned too close to a school. So a lot of that has to be flushed out. But there's a lot of fear mongering going on.
Well, it's the fear mongering that I'm concerned about. Exactly. Because once again, the state has very stringent regulations for the licenses that they give. How far you can locate. Certainly taking into account schools, security issues, the cultivation facility. When it is fully operational, they're worried about odor. Mm-hmm. Well, it's an indoor grow. Mm-hmm. It's sure. Greenhouse, but you try and explain that to people, they say, what? Nah, it's not outdoor grow. And this is where we live here in the Northeast. You can't do outdoor grow and be profitable. No, it's just the season is not long enough. Right. And if you have to turn around volume as a licensee with a patient roster that could be, where they're going to be located in Western New Jersey, the facility, the retail, there's no one out there. Those people are coming east to Secaucus and Montclair. So now they're going to draw from all that area. I'm sure they can have 20,000 patients in no time. Easy. Right now we, as a group, as a state, we're at almost at 60. And the numbers keep going higher. And that's the reason for the new medical law that's being accelerated, the expansion bill. But, you got to be able to produce enough product for the patient load. And right now we're at that breaking point.
Maximum capacity.
I went to my dispensary yesterday.
Empty?
Well, no, because they dropped a new strain. And of course they used Instagram and their other marketing tools, which is what else you can do in this space if you do it appropriately, without breaking the bank. That it was dropping that day. So I just know from my own experience, if I don't go that day, it's gone.
Right.
And they had, and that's just the way it works. But once there's more opportunity, more retail outlets there, that situation won't exist. And also the price will go down, make it more accessible for more people. It's about patient access, really. Yeah. So the best way to tell these stories and get people on board is using real life stories, and not about the person who's growing the strongest weed. That's not the story we're talking about. We're talking about changing people's lives and making them better because they're using cannabis for whatever their symptoms are, as opposed to opiates and other drugs that are prescribed by doctors.
It's a paradigm shift. It's a cultural shift. It's an economic shift. It's a shift on so many different levels.
Right.
It's really an uphill battle for everyone in the industry and every segment of the industry. And there's a lot of regulations that people need to adhere to from a marketing and advertising perspective. People have been subject to advertising blackouts, right? And that's just one small piece of what you have to worry about to get your launch up. There's so much more than that. But when you think about what it means to build your brand, it's everything to launching your company. So how you market and how you can get your brand out there and how you can make yourself visible, if you're limited in that, you're going to have a hard time being successful, especially once the big boys start coming in.
Which they're already doing. I mean,
exactly.
there's a lot of resentment from people who applied for licenses who didn't get them against the ones who were awarded because they're all MSOs, multiple state operators who have businesses in other states. But I think that was actually a smart move, just to allow experience to launch it. So we don't have the issues, the mistakes that have been made in the other markets that have legalization or medical. And that was, I think, a smart move. So it would go smoothly. They would use the skills and the successes that they had in other territories and use it here so it would be seamless and not result in people lined up around the block, traffic jams, all the bad stuff that people always predict. And when Massachusetts didn't do it correctly.
Sure.
And what you were seeing when the first legal dispensary opened, or the second or the third, where they had to have satellite parking in shuttle buses taking people to the dispensaries, and then the community got all in arms. All the bad stuff came out of the woodwork again.
Right.
So as much as I wish New Jersey had passed a legalization bill, okay, we didn't. It's politics. That wasn't about cannabis. That had nothing to do with cannabis whatsoever. The expansion of the medical is going to be for people looking to get into the business just as productive and probably in a much quicker way than the actual legalization would have accomplished for them anyway.
Yeah.
Because we have the infrastructure already in place for medical. It's working. So it's better to plug in when everyone start out with adult use initially, and then how would they split up between, because these dispensaries would all be godfathered.
Right.
The 12 now. Would be allowed to have a medical and an adult use side, whereas the new ones won't.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of back and forth, but that should not intimidate anybody from coming into this space.
No, it's a pendulum. It's going to swing back and forth.
It's a startup. You have to look at this. No matter how much you hear about the billions of dollars that are being spent in cannabis, it is still a startup business.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a history of how to do anything, and we're not trying. It is a new world, so you can't emulate what alcohol did, because first of all, we're not a drug. We're a plant that saves people's lives.
Yeah.
So they tend to group us sin products all together, but we're nothing like alcohol as an industry. We are certainly nothing like tobacco as an industry, because cannabis industry is about sustainability and doing the right thing and a lifestyle. It's a culture.
Right.
It's just not a product that we consume.
That's one of my biggest concerns is seeing the culture shift and go away too quickly. I'm loving the culture.
Yeah.
Culture is a lot of fun. We have our Canna family in here in New Jersey and New York, and tons of barbecues this summer that'll be going on, and there's a Canna bash tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right. Although that'll probably occur after I put this out. But ultimately, it's got that culture and it's got that family feel to it, and to see that get eaten up quickly is going to be heartbreaking for a lot of people. So hopefully that doesn't happen.
I don't think it will. I think it's always going to, this group, this Canna family, as you referenced,
Sure.
will still exist, and we're still going to be involved in this industry. But as with any startup business, as it matures, the big guys come in.
Yeah.
And that's capitalism. And, we didn't get into the space. Well, some people got into space just to make money.
Sure.
But a lot of people got in because to the point of the family and the culture. It's a lifestyle that really unites people. It's bonding.
Yeah.
And, just as we say, you don't see fights when people are smoking cannabis. The way you go to a bar when people are doing using alcohol, people are mellow when they're doing cannabis, and we're responsible, and no one's out of line. And
Yeah.
you just have to fight all these negative stereotypes that have been propagated by alcohol industry, by pharma, by these people who are threatened by cannabis because they see it as taking a lot of their market share away.
Yeah.
And since we are not a sin product, it's hard to equate it.
I think you're right. Going back to your point about New Jersey doing it right and actually having some of the MSOs get up, have it stood up, because the last thing you want to do is have it fail.
Right.
Right. If you have just one failure, from a PR perspective, that's going to set us back like 2 to 5 years. It's really going to look bad. We get into an election year, we're already going there anyways, but ultimately it just has such a ripple effect on everyone that is trying to do good things for the community. So I agree. I think they did the right thing. Have it be an evolutionary step and you know, let it evolve organically. And ultimately, as a quality and compliance guy, I'd rather see us do it right. I'd rather see us take our time.
But look how much your role is going to be needed now with the
Sure.
expansion.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so
Oh, yeah.
and mine as well. I mean, so especially what you're doing. I mean, because it's going to be stipulated what they have to comply with
Yeah.
and what rules they have to play by.
Yeah.
And they, you know, if there's going to be 36 cultivators or whatever the number is now, each one is going to have to play by the state's rules. They need to employ people who understand that,
Sure.
and also who know people within the industry. Because what we were talking about, the Canna family, it is a very unique group, but we have people in all walks of life. And what makes it wonderful is that they're all willing to help you.
Yeah. I mean, my goal is to really hold the hands between pharma and the cannabis industry, because they both obviously have a need or a space in this world, right? I mean, nobody making a cannabis product is out there making vaccines yet.
Yeah.
Yet. We will.
Yeah.
But, you know, my point being, they both have a space. And, you know, like to the quality and the compliance piece of this, it's going to be, it's going to come quick. And the FDA is going to come in. They're already starting to, you know, do their evaluation from a CBD and a hemp perspective. But that's not the end of it. You know, when you look at the medical track as to where this is going to go, right? It's going to split. It's going to go medical, and it's going to go
Sure.
tobacco and alcohol route. You're going to see a really stronger focus, a much more stronger focus on the R&D side of this, on clinical trials, and going back and doing all the things we really haven't had an opportunity to do to any great extent.
Right. Well, we still can't do clinical trials.
Right.
As long as it remains a Schedule 1 drug.
So you get it to a Schedule 2, that's a win.
That's a win.
That's a win.
And there seems to be movement towards that direction.
I heard that. I was talking to someone about this.
And, you know, I
We'll
guess
take
so it's
it.
going to have to wait till 2020, of course, or 2021, rather. Because nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
Unless Trump decides he needs the bump in the cannabis community to make, if he sees he's really losing.
Yeah.
I really believe he'll say whatever it takes to get elected, which he already did. But he'll do it by saying, I believe in legalizing cannabis, and boom.
Best case scenario, Trump says that and then doesn't get reelected.
Right.
Perfect. We all win.
Right.
Done.
That's exactly. We kill two birds with one stone.
We'll see. I don't know.
But realistically, yeah, there is such a bigger role for you, because it's also, when you go back to education, people want to have confidence in the materials they're consuming. And, you know, it's kind of still, on the cannabis side, it's because it's regulated,
Yep.
but CBD, which is now the bigger product that people are talking about, they're not even talking about cannabis as much anymore. There's no, it's the wild, wild west. There are no regulations. There's no standards of measurement. So if our job, if I'm representing a legitimate CBD company, would be to use that as a point of differentiation between the people who are just doing white label, and I don't know if your audience knows what white labeling is, but it's, you know, you go to one supplier and just puts different labels,
Right.
And so you're all using the same stuff. There's no ownership. It's just a licensing deal, if that, at best.
The accountability is not there.
There's no accountability.
Sure.
So you want to make sure you see their certificate of testing and that they've met all these different guidelines. And then when the FDA finally does get on board, it's just going to explode.
Yeah, it's, you know, I think you're going to see a lot of people go out of business.
Oh, for sure, as they should.
And
Because
well, not as they should.
if you got not good players.
Sure. You know, I think the me's of the world that are in the compliance, you know, are their responsibility to hold the hands and help legitimize these companies. You know, if I had half of mine now, I'd go out to 7-Eleven, say, show me your inventory of CBD products, tell them which ones aren't valid,
Right, of course.
and then make a quick buck consulting saying
Right.
80% of your inventory is not even valid as of, you know, when that switch
Right.
flips.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people not even thinking like that.
Right.
So
But, and which is true. And the same, conversely,
Yeah.
a lot of people are not at their early stage and not thinking of the role we can play
Right.
in building their companies as well. And it is. I mean, they may not have revenue at that point, but if you win a license, you know, you have to influence. There's a PR. It's not just about media.
Yeah.
It's about working within the community and identifying the influencers in the communities and getting them to be your advocates and befriending them and bringing them in and transparency.
Yeah.
Once again, because that's the best way to fight the negativity, because you can just puncture a right hole there. The client I'm representing now, we took an ad in the Morristown Daily Record, a full-page ad last Sunday, basically saying, hi, we're really looking forward to being part of your community. We know you have questions. We're here to answer them. We're about transparency, and this is what our corporate beliefs are, and we'll be there. We look forward to seeing you. I actually think that's the first cannabis paid ad in New Jersey. And they had to review the ad.
Keep that one.
Oh no, I'm gonna have it framed for the company, because it really, and the world didn't end.
Right.
And that's the thing. So it was more of a corporate ad than a come to my dispensary because I got the best weed ad.
Of course. Yeah.
But nevertheless, you need to aggressively fight these people, the Sams of this, the smart Patrick Kennedy's group.
Yeah.
And what's going to really happen, and this is something that hopefully your group can get on board with. This ballot initiative for 2020 is just trouble, because if we as an industry, the New Jersey cannabis community, who people who have some serious bucks, need to start now to put a war chest aside, because those anti-cannabis people are going to be spending massive amounts of money on advertising, and we're going to be faced with not only negative advertising about how evil cannabis is, but then we have to also deal with Trump's advertising, because it's going to be for the same election. Yeah. So the airwaves are going to be, and if we're not there fighting as strongly as we can, that law will not get, that voting won't pass.
Yeah, I agree.
But no one's thinking forward. This is about anticipation. The reason a lot of issues didn't happen, if our governor had thought ahead or had counsel that provided him with smart advice, he would have befriended certain people within the legislator earlier, not later, and then also been a little more aggressive in their posture about his signature. It's
like compliance.
Platform.
It's always an afterthought.
Right.
Worry about the compliance later. We'll sell the product first, and then we'll just fill the holes and everything else after the fact.
But so that's the other role it can play. So if one of the new 12 licensees, or as the medical expands, people who get a license, that's the moment they should hire somebody like me, because we know how to work the local. It's a public affairs initiative then. Yeah. And you really need to start that outreach and making friends with people as early as possible, not when you're ready to open your door. You've got 2 years before you're ready to open your door.
Yeah.
No. And that's what people may not understand, that value. But, you have your team that will get you that license, which is usually an attorney, an accountant, and and they know what they're doing in that space. But when it comes to once you got it, what do you do?
Yeah, of course.
And that's when you got to start playing.
I was going to ask you, in terms of helping change the optics and helping, educate the public, the parents are a big, I don't want to say problem, but they're a big component of that. And if I've got 2 daughters, and if they were a little older, I'd be thinking about them and optics, and then seeing this as like a cool thing, like, oh, I'm going to college in 2 years, great, this is going to be legal in 2 years, and this is like,
but it will be 21.
21, agreed. But they still, the optics and the perception of like this being a cool, trendy thing, as opposed to medicine. I think we have a huge responsibility to put a increased focus on that particular demographic.
Without a doubt.
Because the ones that are younger, the kids will grow up knowing, my kids know that this is medicine. Right. They will always know that it's medicine for me. And that's how they're going to know it. And if they learn that it's available for adult use later on, their initial take is it's a wellness product. Right. So but
those are the stories, telling stories like yours, are how we change that conversation.
Absolutely.
So it's the obligation of the media to start doing that. Now, we have a lot of pro-cannabis people out there in very visible spots. Stephen Colbert, who certainly love, and I love his way he approaches politics. Whenever he does a cannabis story, it's always like, wow, man. He goes into cannabis speak. No one talks like that anymore. It's the Cheech and Chong way of referring to it, and it's not accurate.
Right.
It's a dated look at how we are, and as much as I'm sure, consumes and participates, he's not helping the cause by presenting it that way.
The half-baked.
The half-baked look. Yeah. Exactly. So a lot of what I talk about in a lot of these groups that we all run into each other at is using certain words, as opposed to other words. Don't call it weed, don't call it dope, don't call it reefer. call it cannabis. Don't call it even marijuana. Okay, if you have no choice, but really marijuana is a racist term.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it goes back to when in the 30s when the government was really trying to position Mexicans as the purveyors of bad acts, and this was what drives them.
Right.
And it was with a H and not a J, and then it morphed, and then we got into where we're at now with the whole Schedule 1 situation. But calling that medical stories, the storytelling that has to be done is, once again, not about the big MSO coming in. They got a $4 billion infusion from an alcohol company, which is great, but not the story that's going to help change people's minds.
Sure.
What's going to help change people's minds is your personal story, other people's personal stories where their backs were against the wall, they tried everything, or they were addicted to opiates and this got them off of being an addict to opiates in a normal lifestyle, that they were using topical creams rather than other kinds of pain medicine, improves their life. And then as that message gets out, companies can then start to take a different position. Because even if you're a medical patient, you're not necessarily protected, even though you may, but you're not going to take anyone to court from losing your job if they do drug test you and you test positive. Supposedly you're not, that's not supposed to happen. But they can come up with another reason for doing that. So companies are starting to look at addiction not as the person's problem, but as something they can help with. So if they start making that pivot and seeing the role cannabis plays in it, and then maybe insurance companies will start covering patients' costs, because one of the bigger issues with the medical side of it is it's all out of pocket.
Yeah.
And if we're kind of lucky in a way that it doesn't break the bank. And certainly the new expansion law addresses a lot of the ills that it had, like the 90-day checkup will be gone.
Sure.
It'll be once a year. Doctors probably don't like that because they're not going to make anywhere near the amount of money they were on every 90 days.
Right.
But if I am a consumer who really needs this medicine and I'm handicapped or I have other disabilities that prevent me from going to places, this is going to make it, I can't afford that extra $100 or $200, whatever the doctor charges.
Yeah, everyone's got a different budget.
Right.
You know?
And then, as we expand and more outlets open, when the price drops, it'll become more affordable. I'm going to Oregon in a couple weeks, and I was just having to check the prices online earlier, and like, oh my God, this is the promised land, and you're not paying ridiculous tax. But Oregon didn't do it right.
Oregon has a huge surplus right now.
A huge surplus.
And when you say huge, they have enough cannabis for the next 6 years?
I mean, if interstate commerce was allowed in cannabis, they would be leading the country in product, pushing it out.
You can't sell
but it's not because it's still a federal law. But and the reason they have the surplus is they rushed their legalization bill through. They didn't take a quarter of what other people were doing.
Yeah.
So licenses were like $10 a pop. I mean, I'm being, but not that expensive. So
everyone had them.
Everyone had them.
Yeah.
And then the people who hadn't didn't understand the consequences or the responsibilities, rather, that came with having a license, like tax reporting. And so optically, it used to kill me. I'd see these shots from Portland of boarded up or out of business dispensaries. In a startup world, startup business, you can't afford those kind of mistakes.
Right.
And so as we see, or that's why you can get a pound for $300, $400 or whatever, grams for like ridiculously low prices. That's kind of the worst case scenario.
Right.
And I think we won't ever find ourselves like that here. California has its own issues with the guys in Humboldt County who have been the long-time players, growing it, coming up with different procedures that are now normal, and they're not playing ball. They're not registered. They're not licensed.
Right.
They're getting raided because you know what? They're not. That's it.
Yeah.
So this is the morphing of the business. Yet it's better to be, I think, legislated the way it is and play within legalization boundaries. I was at a conference in Desert Springs, which is in the desert, in California. And it's the indoor grow capital of the world. And
I didn't know that.
The mayor came to this conference to thank the industry because of the revenue that we were going to be generating for his local community. He had built into the budget for 2020 and 2021 2 new schools, 12 new cops, a park, and this is all from cannabis revenue. Look at Colorado broke the $1 billion
Yeah, I saw
Mark-
that. $1 billion for Colorado.
in revenue.
That's crazy.
I mean, that's insane.
Yeah.
So,
And that's just the tip of the iceberg.
right, because once hemp and all that really kicks in,
Yeah.
and that's a big movement, right? The fact that the Farm Bill was passed,
Mhm.
and the government is going to allow people to grow hemp, in fact, incentivize them in some states.
Yep. Yep.
Because
It's like Alaska. They pay people to move to
Right,
Alaska.
right.
You know.
Because it's going to return. I mean, you have Mitch McConnell, of all people, championing hemp, who could he definitely use some cannabis in his life, but he's championing hemp because it's good for his state.
Yeah.
You know?
What are your thoughts on, really the agricultural industry here in the U.S. once legalization hits? Because we all know the cost to grow a gram in the U.S. is 1.5 or
Yeah.
0.5. I think it's 1.5 in Canada. I'm sorry. And then you go to Colombia and it's 0.
Yeah. It's expensive.
0.5.
I mean, but it's the price we pay
Yeah.
for being here. I mean, are you going to go to Colombia?
Nope.
And I don't want to live in Colombia.
I mean, personally, I want to see, support local. You support your
Right.
local.
So I think
brands,
you're going
but-
to see, in a way, certainly as consolidation happens, which will when the buyouts happen, a few big top national brands, like Bud and Coors, and but you're going to have the craft brewery segment as well, which will appeal
Yeah.
to us connoisseurs, and it'll be segmented market. There'll be market leaders, people. You already have them now on the West Coast. Candescent, which I don't know if you're familiar with them. They're actually grown in Desert Springs. They are known for beautiful marketing, packaging, and you pay premium for that. Is the Canna, and they market it not by strains but by moods. Like CBD is doing that, a lot of that.
Yeah.
So because they're looking at a new market, new people coming into the industry, not us.
Right.
Because I was like, I would never buy anything that says it's gonna whatever mood. Really? I said no. But
Bootylicious.
that's not me.
Is that a
But,
mood?
Yeah,
It's not a
it's not a mood. It could be a mood. You'd like it to be a mood.
It's
but,
Friday,
But nevertheless, if you go to a California dispensary that carries the Candescent line, packaging, as a consumer, because like anything else, when you go to buy perfume, whatever, you're attracted to the packaging.
Yeah.
You're not paying for the stuff in the jar. You're paying for the packaging. Beautiful packaging, rolling papers branded, all that. So you're paying like $5 a gram more for their product. I wouldn't say it delivers $5 more, but that is a premium brand. I'm working with this other client who is works with cultivators. It's a curing system that freeze dries the cannabis and maintains its freshness, and also cures it in a lot quicker than normal curing does. And we're looking to use that to become like the Intel inside of for cultivators. So it could be your brand, but it's got cryo cured.
Right.
So, and that's the stamp that tells me, the consumer, that I now know what I'm buying, because I have confidence, and it's also you as the cultivator, premium price, because it's a much stronger and healthier product. We have documentation that shows, head to head, curing one way and curing this way, we have more THC in the plant,
Right.
and also don't lose any of the terpenes.
Yeah.
That only happen over the course of a 2 to 4 week curing system when you're doing this in 24 to 36 hours.
There's a lot of variation right now.
And this is what I think is going to make this interesting industry for many people in other worlds, other spaces.
Yep.
If I'm a tech guy and I want to there's no other industry that's going to allow me to play the way this is, because it's going to be artificial strains. There already is.
Yep.
And or curing something in 24 to 36 hours versus 2 to 4 weeks. So technology is going to take over and change, professionalize, and people say what we're consuming now is so much stronger than we did when I first started using cannabis, and they're right. But can you imagine what it's going to be?
I'm waiting for the extended release tablet, so I don't have to consume every 2 hours. It's
I would love that.
24-hour pill.
And the same having.
Actually, I don't want a pill. I take that back.
Well,
24-hour edible. We'll call it whatever. But you know what I mean.
Or
Because
the
if you're a
topical,
true patient,
yeah.
And you're suffering, worst case scenario, you have cancer, and you really don't want to be consuming flour. It's all you can get in New Jersey right now. It's flour.
Right.
You got to make your own edibles.
Right.
That it's just you don't want to be
Right, you don't have limited options.
Exactly.
I mean, and if you look at what the legal states offer, it's a potpourri of whatever you,
Right.
if you doesn't exist, someone's going to think of it.
Yeah.
You know, topical creams, if they can somehow make it last longer as well, so you're not putting on every half hour,
Sure.
or whatever, because they work wonderfully, but they don't have that length. But the people doing, you know, foods and beverages,
Yeah. It's a lot.
and with hemp, you know, you'll have construction equipment, you'll have walls and helmets made out of hemp, cars made out of hemp.
I saw that house
Yeah.
that was made out of hemp at the expo,
Yeah.
and they had a whole house built out of hempcrete at this the CWCBE expo. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
For sure.
You did.
Good. Yeah, I was blown away. The guy was super chill. I was having a great conversation with that
Yeah.
guy, and
I mean,
he's going
Hemp
some places.
clothing, I mean,
Oh yeah.
it's all going to be, once they start generating enough to bring that cost down too, because it's very expensive right now,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
kind of weird. We import all of our hemp from China.
Yeah, I was just going to comment on the whole trade war and what impact this plays on that, because
Well-
it gives us leverage, and it also has some implications on price across the
Right.
globalized market.
Right.
It's not some, has a lot of
No,
impact.
but as our hemp becomes more, you know, harvested and cultivated and all that, we won't be importing as much from China, and they're going to feel it, you know.
Yeah.
Regardless of the tariff.
A
It's
lot
not
of
the tariff.
it's a land grab in the U.S. right now,
Yeah.
and everyone is going after expanding their acreage, and you know, existing farmers are now getting into a 4-year or a 4-season
Yeah, greenhouses.
crop
Right. That's
agricultural
what it is.
method. So
Sure.
you put a few indoor greenhouses on your farm, and now you're doing it 24.
Well, you know,
Seven, 12 months a year.
agriculturally, you know, to your earlier question,
Mm-hmm.
this is an agricultural product. The state of New Jersey classifies it as an agricultural product. And so it's going to allow, from an educational perspective, bringing new people into the space who can come up with new methods of raising strains or creating strains that can target more specific medical symptoms
Yep.
that we don't know. I mean, look at Israel. They're leading the way in clinical testing because they can.
Right.
They're finding every day there's another announcement coming from some other testing lab out there about Alzheimer's
Yep.
or some other disease that is really, you know, debilitating the United States population because we can't do that yet.
Yeah. There's a lot of catch up we need to do with some of the more advanced, R&D
Right.
facilities out there.
Yeah, even partnerships with universities
Yep.
for research. I mean, Seton Hall, I went to, they had some great research. Couldn't be done on cannabis. They were doing another plant that was similar in family to cannabis, increasing the yield through laser. I mean, it was just incredible. I felt like I was on Star Trek. It was great. But, and they're ready to go.
Yeah.
Once they could get a cultivation license, Newark didn't, I don't think Newark got a cultivation license.
Newark didn't.
Yeah.
I don't
But
think so.
that's where they were banking on. Patterson did.
Patterson did.
Yeah.
I came from Patterson. I grew up in Patterson.
My whole
when I was
family's from
younger.
Patterson,
And,
so,
I was
yeah.
happy to see that.
Yeah.
And even Newark. I would love to see Newark just completely be reinvented by cannabis and technology. It's got the infrastructure.
Yeah.
You're so close to New York. You've got the people that are just great there. And at the end of the day, there's really nothing holding it back from just being the next tech hub on the East
Yeah.
Coast, the
Yeah.
Silicon Valley, if you will.
Yeah. Well, Philadelphia's trying it, and we could blow Philadelphia out of the water by doing that.
Sure.
I mean, Jersey City wants to be the tech capital.
Yeah.
But I'm sure if Newark wants to make it happen, it'll happen.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, it's good for the state anyway.
Yeah. I
To have
agree.
all that concentration. So yeah, no, it's really an exciting time.
It is. I agree. There's a lot to cover. There's a lot of changing regulations. There's things that you probably aren't thinking about that you should be thinking about. So you're going to need help. You're going to need help from people like Stu and your lawyers and your accountants that are specializing in cannabis and know what deductions you can make right now.
Which are pretty much none.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, it's
Yeah.
something that year over year,
Right.
it's going to change. So you need to have a finger on the pulse in every one of those segments of your startup to make sure you're going to stay compliant and have that competitive advantage going forward.
And recognize that it's going to take you 3 to 5 years. You got to be willing to lose money for 3 to 5 years, more or less. If you're getting onto touching the plant side of the business.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. It's
I mean, look realistically. Even if you raised your money today, and made $5 or $10 million that you'll get your hands on, first you got to get a license. So to get that license, you got to spend a lot of money.
Sure.
I think the average of people who applied of the 146 was like $300,000 to $400,000 all in. And of that, you know, in addition to the $20,000 application fee, of which you got 18 back, the state kept 2.
A couple kids aren't going to college in a few years. That's what's going on.
That's for sure. But you know what? That's the cost of playing in this field. It's not determined. You know,
it's positioning.
It's
proactive positioning.
If you can raise the capital, they don't care if you're black, white, Latino, Asian. No, it's open to everybody. Women, veterans. It really is there, and with the expanded law, with the micro licenses that they're offering, it's going to be more inclusionary.
Yeah.
And that's so that, you know, as much as it'll still be the big guys playing, having access for anyone at different outlets, there's money for everybody.
Yeah. No, I agree. There's a lot of potential. So if you're really looking to get in the game, now is the time. I would not.
Well, now is the time.
Wait.
I wouldn't wait any longer. And then, you know, I couldn't strongly recommend to people that they participate in the industry. Go to these organizations that have meetings. Lobby. Meet, network, peers. Because we all have to get united. I mean, it's still an issue. We're still fighting a political fight.
Yeah.
Even though you would think by now we've won. And once again, in our turf, right here in New Jersey, we're going to have a major battle on our hands 12 months from now. I don't know, whenever they start the advertising for the 2020 election. They already started. But if we as an industry can't fight, not head to head, because they're going to be able to raise so much more money than we are, but we still have some big players in this space, and the MSOs that have come in, they're cash cows in Canada. They can, you know, write a check for a couple $100 million.
Well, Bruce Linton's got a vested interest in the U.S. market now. With his,
sure he does.
And
in many different ways.
Absolutely. So, you know, he and I were talking briefly about, you know, just quality control in the industry, and he was very interested in speaking further about having, you know, a more in-depth conversation as to what various companies are doing to harmonize state to state.
And I don't know if your people know who Bruce Linton, who he is.
Bruce Linton from Canopy Growth Corp.
The biggest cannabis company in the world. And he's accessible, which I admire about him.
Yes.
Kevin Murphy, I was at this thing last night, and he was there. He is the owner of Acreage, which Canopy purchased pending legalization in the U.S. For a lot of money. And he's also accessible, but not as much as Bruce was.
Bruce almost wasn't accessible to me. It was kind of funny. He was at the Canna Gather event in New York, and he was getting swamped, and he was trying to get out the door, and I didn't want to be that guy. But all of a sudden I hear someone go, "Bruce, your shoe's untied." I'm like, shit, I got 30 seconds. So I get down on my knee like I'm going to marry this guy. And I'm like sputtering. And all I said was like, quality control. He's like, let's talk. So,
Did you give him his card?
Yeah.
No. I mean, he actually gave me a real good pointer. Because I saw he was folding people's cards.
Yes.
I go, what do you? He goes, that's how I know.
Who to call back.
That's what I'm following up with.
Yeah, I always do that. Otherwise I get...
You get lost.
I start giving away cards as my own card.
Right.
If I don't
Another person had a
them.
great, for networking, which if you ever do it when you get in this business, is also take a picture of the person with their card. Because you remember the face more than the name.
That's a great idea.
And most people are up for it.
Yeah.
You know,
that's
because we live in a social media where everyone's posting selfies anyway.
Well, I always feel like a creep because I'm going on their Facebook page to see, or their LinkedIn to see what their face looks like after I meet somebody.
Right.
And on LinkedIn, you can tell when someone's looking at your profile. So I'm just creeping on people all day trying to figure out who the hell I talked to the night before.
Right.
But no, this has been great having you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate you stopping by into the dungeon here. I wish we could have filmed outside today. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
But, you know, as some closing comments, do you have anything you want to leave with our viewers?
I would encourage,
you
you can reach me. My website is bridgestrategic.com, www, obviously. It has a big overview of what I've done in the space and other areas I've worked in. Has a lot of TV interviews I've been doing.
Very impressive track record.
And you can reach me through there. You can reach me on Twitter, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, you know, all Stu Zakim. So you can just find me that way. And I would just encourage anyone who really is serious about getting into this business to do the homework, do some research, and attend these meetings so you really get a handle on how to manage your own expectations. Because a lot of people say, I want to be in the weed business. And you're not going to become a tycoon overnight. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I agree. Half my family keeps saying that to me. Like, oh, you're going to go join the weed business. I'm like, I'm going to do what I do. I'm like, I want to bring quality control to that industry. You know,
Right.
that's something I have a passion for. So
Yeah.
patient safety and product
Right.
quality.
Absolutely.
You know, so
That's what makes it unique.
again, thank you for coming
Thank
on
you.
the show.
My
It's been
pleasure.
great.
Absolutely.
This is a Coast to Coast Canna Chat. We'll talk to you guys next time. All right, we're out. Peace.